Whenever somebody had a problem with me, I immediately got on defensive mode because it meant that I wasn't perfect. It meant that I did wrong. And I didn't want to believe that. I wanted to believe that I was just this pretty perfect princess. And I am a pretty princess, but I'm not a perfect princess. Before we go into this new year screaming, we're putting ourselves first all 2026. We don't care about anybody's feelings. We're doing me. I gotta put me first, Lucius. I need you to think about some things first. If you're going into 2026 serious about your self-love journey and your self-growth journey, sometimes it's going to be uncomfortable. Most times when we're searching up how to love ourselves properly, it can be very romanticized. They'll tell you things like journal, take care of yourself, go on dates with yourself. I 100% agree with all of that. It is one particular part of my self-love journey that I don't feel like it's talked about enough. When it comes to this whole self-love thing, sometimes you have to face the truth. And I'm here to tell you, sometimes you are the problem. I'm all about giving yourself grace. That is one thing that has been so hard for me to learn. And now that I've mastered that, it's become a lot easier. There's no need to beat yourself up for mistakes that you've made. But I feel like self-love has been misunderstood as only giving yourself grace and not really holding yourself accountable. And when I say that, I mean how what you've done and what you said and how you acted has affected other people. And I know a lot of us, we're more in a reaction type of lifestyle, type of mind. We only act how we've learned to act based off of experiences that we have encountered. I don't want to scare you away when I say you can be the problem. I just want to open your eyes to certain patterns that you may do that you don't notice. And I'm about to break it all down for you right now. I used to be very manipulative. When I was growing up, the people in my household, they would argue a lot. They didn't really know how to solve their problems properly, or they just really didn't know how to communicate. So instead of listening and understanding each other, it was always a battle to see who's right. No one was really listening. They were only focusing on themselves. So when I got older and it was time for me to start having real conversations, like about how things made me feel, like feelings and stuff, I didn't handle it the best way. Instead of acknowledging that what I was doing or what I was saying or how I was acting was affecting the other person, I just kind of flipped the script on them and made it seem like their problem with me was because of me as a person. Like I would say things like, oh, I'm never good enough for you. I'm always the problem. I would instantly try to become the victim. I isolated myself, and instead of trying to make things right, I made it hard for my family to come to me whenever they felt some type of way, because to them, they're thinking if I go to Jayla, she's just going to blow it out of proportion, make it bigger than what it is. So I made it to where they didn't feel safe coming to me. Whenever somebody had a problem with me, I immediately got on defensive mode because it meant that I wasn't perfect. It meant that I did wrong. And I didn't want to believe that. I wanted to believe that I was just this pretty perfect princess. And I am a pretty princess, but I'm not a perfect princess. It would hurt when I realized that I wasn't perfect. And sometimes I do things that make people mad. And growing up as a people pleaser, and I'm always trying to make people happy, if I did something wrong, I would project. Because I was convinced that I was a bad person, I would try to flip it on them as if they thought I was the bad person, and that's why they were coming at me. And what made me realize I was wrong and what snapped me out of all this is when I called my grandma on the phone. It was sometime last year. I was like at the end of school. I went to aesthetic school. I don't have my license. I don't even really like aesthetics. I was just doing stuff. Anyway, that was important to the story. Anyway, I was just going through this phase where I was like, I'm tired of looking for love in people instead of accepting the love that I already get. And so I just realized, like, all these years, the people in my life was not trying to push me down. They were trying to build me up. And so once I realized all of this, I called my grandma on the phone and I was like, I'm sorry. Like, I'm sorry for how I've been acting. I'm sorry that I've done this, that, and the third. And I was just telling her about how I feel so much lighter and I feel so much better. And she responded with, I'm so happy for you, but let me tell you how what you've done has affected me. And I was like, oh, I thought this was supposed to be a kumbaya moment. And it was in a sense, but I also had to allow her to feel heard and allow her to get her side of the story. When I was being manipulative to her and I was telling her like she didn't think I was good enough or it was always a problem, it made her feel like she couldn't voice her opinion. It made her feel small. It made her feel like how she felt didn't matter. That's what today's video is all about. Self-love doesn't just affect you, it affects the people around you. If you hate yourself, you project that even if you don't mean to. I feel like people can physically see the mental shift in me. Back then, I barely even wanted to give her a hug. Like, that's how much I was so uncomfortable with myself. It had nothing to do with her. And now that I've grown to love myself and cherish myself, I hug her all the time. And it's just like small things like that. You have to learn the difference between giving yourself grace and taking accountability. Giving yourself grace is about forgiving yourself for handling things in a way that you thought was best at the time. Like for me, I thought what would make me feel better was to isolate myself from everyone. Taking accountability is about acknowledging what you've done and also making a vow to yourself that you won't act like that again, or you won't react to things like that again. Me taking accountability is realizing that the way that I was acting and the way that I treated people made them feel bad. For so long, I really felt like nobody really cared about me. I felt like what I said and how I acted didn't really matter because I felt like it didn't affect them anyway. But it did. And now that I know that, I know how to move forward. I know that certain things should not be said, and I know how to have a conversation to actually let myself be heard and also let the other person be heard. But this can also be a tricky situation. You may have a conversation with someone where you're allowing yourself to be heard and you hear the other person's side of the story and you still don't necessarily agree with one another. If there's no way that you can come to a compromise or you can see things from each other's point of view, then that relationship just not be worth fighting for. I feel like on your self-love journey, you'll have to decide if you want a relationship more. Now you know how you want to be treated and you know how you want to treat others. If you don't align with a certain person, like if they're not treating you how you want to be treated and you can't treat them how they want to be treated, it is perfectly okay for you to say that this relationship is just not a relationship that you can tend to. I had to learn the hard way that every relationship is not meant to last forever. And it sucks because I'm such a person where if I know you, I want to know you forever. Like if you're my friend, I want you to be my friend forever. It just doesn't work like that. I just think that being able to build a healthy relationship is just so important. Even if it's a new relationship or if it's an old relationship and you're trying to do things better. I just feel like it's so important, especially if you're like me and you really try to diminish your feelings to make other people feel better. It's just not worth it. And I really want you all to be able to just have healthy relationships where you can have a healthy conversation and you can be heard and you can hear. I know we're trying to walk into 2026 just doing me, being me. At the same time, building healthy relationships is just so rewarding and it feels so good to know that you have people who care about you and you care about other people. Self-love is not about pretending that you're perfect. You're going to try to ignore all the negative, but sometimes you have to face it, the negative, because you have to see where it's coming from. And if you just keep pretending that everything is rainbows and lollipops, you're not really getting better. You're just pretending. I thought this was important because this is just something that I learned. And if you're struggling with making connections with the people in your lives, you're holding on to some resentment for yourself that is blocking you to make connections with the people in your life. I really hope you guys enjoyed today's video. My last video was about the 3 components of a slump and how you can use them to fight back and take back your life. If you want to watch that, that'll be right here and you can subscribe here today. My name is Jayla. I call myself your big sister in all things wellness, mental wellness, physical wellness, and emotional wellness. If you like anything that I've said today, you should check out some of my digital products that can help you get out of any slump that you're in. That will be in the description box down below. Thank you guys so much for watching and I will see you in my next one. Bye.